Hello and welcome to BUNKUM. My name's Anthony and today we're on case number 2 of Playdead, Spiderpus and the Screeching Weasels. Let's see what scary beasties we're going to come across in this next episode. Let's dig in. So here we are with episode 2. Case number 2 rather, called Spiderpus and the Screeching Weasels. Obviously recently released the first in the series, or case number 1, which I think it was called Schrodinger's house. I can't even say it. There's some dude's house where we met our ghostly dog called Thief. So I'm interested to see how they develop the storyline, whether it's going to get a bit more freaky deaky. But I really got invested in the characters. I loved the characters. I love the imagery. I love the audio. So I'm going to see if they're going to be consistent and deliver on this iteration of the game. So without further ado, let's go. So we've got another browser. I'm going to have to check, see if they've actually is a Tumblr with that address. Anyway, so I'm back. Someone suggested I set up a proper blog, so here's that. Anyway, it seems that a few of you want to hear about some of our other monster mishaps, and I am nothing if not a people pleaser, so here you go. Also, we're still at home, and if I don't look busy, Brian is going to drag me into some feng shui remodel of our rubbish apartment, which I admit I wouldn't mind him doing, but I'm not getting suckered into moving a bunch of furniture to make up for his noodle arms. Needs to do some workout. Therefore, I give you The Thing in the Basement of That Venue in Chicago. That's a working title. On the surface, there was nothing unusual about this place, which I'm withholding the name of because I don't want to be legally responsible if some wannabe monster hunter reads this and goes down there to harass the venue owners. Or worse, actually finds the thing. Anyway, it was kind of a little hole in the wall club, nothing extraordinary. The stage was about the size of a broom closet. Caleb, Brian and I had all of like 3 feet between everyone's gear and falling into the crowd, and Savannah's drum kit was shoved so far back that you could barely see her. Plus, the whole piece shook when people jumped in the pit, and I didn't feel comfortable encourage them that as much as I normally would. Oh, there's our crew. They all look very busy. They've got Fallout Boy on the wall. Who else? Can't see the other ones. Anyway, sorry. The Green Room, meanwhile, was downstairs. It wasn't all that appealing to hang out in. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was repurposed. It was a repurposed laundry room with just a couple of armchairs, a small couch, and about half of what was on our rider. Apparently, no one at the venue had wanted to entertain my request specifically for Red Sour Patch Kids. They're the best. Fight me. What are they? Sour Patch Kids. Are they like the dolls that you used to get back in the 80s? Anyway, I'm digressing. So I was stuck rooting around in the bag for them. I was sitting on one of the couches, scavenging for red Sour Patches while thumbing through a book I'd picked up at some Midwestern truck stop about haunted places in America. Unsurprisingly, the house where we'd accidentally obtained Thief didn't make the list. The rest of my band lurked in various other corners of the room. Savannah and Caleb were engaged in a heated game of Super Smash Bros, and Brian was parked in one of the other chairs, reading some trashy hipster magazine. Thief was relaxing on the floor as much as a ghost can relax. Oh, look at him. Good dog. I'm still unclear on whether he actually sleeps or what, but that's what it looked like he was doing. Yeah, I was thinking that actually in the last episode. Do ghost dogs sleep? Not that they actually exist, but do they sleep? Suddenly he picked up his head and tilted it. One ear raised slightly as he blinked a few times. Then his lips pulled back into a snarl. Brian and I looked up from our reading material, and Savannah and Caleb paused their game.
Hey, Thief, what's up?
Caleb got up and took a few steps towards him. Thief stood, barked once, and took off through the wall of the green room.
Hey, wait!
Caleb sprinted out of the door after him. The rest of us watched as he disappeared down the hall.
Should we go with him?
No.
Probably.
No, don't do it. Savannah sighed, pushing herself off the couch.
Who knows what he'll get into?
Brian rolled his eyes, but put down whatever vegan mustache wax article he was reading and followed us out the door. The three of us followed Caleb down the hallway and found him standing at the end of it, staring at the door.
Where'd he go?
In there.
Caleb pointed at the door, which had a handwritten employee-only sign taped to it. He tried the doorknob. It was locked.
So, do we ask the venue guys for a key, or...?
And tell them what? Our ghost pet phased through the door and disappeared in there?
Yeah, try and work that one out.
Just leave it. He'll come back eventually. It's probably just a storage closet or something.
But what if he doesn't?
It was meant to be and he can stay here. Good riddance.
Oh, Caleb looked like a kicked puppy, and Savannah punched Brian in the arm.
Look, if he doesn't turn up, we'll find a way in there later. Come on. We're on in a few minutes.
Somewhat reluctantly, Caleb followed us back to the green room. Rock. The show went off with only a few hitches, I guess. We had some weird feedback issues, and there was this strange clicking noise that the sound guy kept blaming us for, and we kept blaming him for because neither of us knew what was going on. The house audio guys are super hit and miss. Sometimes they're actually they're actual professionals, and sometimes they're somebody's cousin whose sound engineering resume consists of their high school play and a graduation party or two, but we can't afford to hire our own to bring out yet. We can't even afford a tour manager, so Savannah and I kind of split that job. I make sure everyone is where they need to be when they need to be there. And she handles all the finances, including shaking down the promoters for our money. Shaking down? I always say shaving, but no, never mind. And arguing with them about what percentage of the merch sales they were supposed to get. She usually wins. Of course, our merch sales weren't exactly stellar, considering that we changed the band name halfway through the tour, and now a bunch of shirts and stickers with the wrong name because we're idiots and did not think about the consequences of that decision. We did hang out with at the merch table for a while after the set, and managed to schmooze our way into a few sales by signing some autographs and taking selfies with a small handful of people who were actually excited to see us. I recognise a couple of them from other cities and had to wonder how far they'd driven. Our fan base may be small, but I guess I'm glad we have one. That's more than a lot of hopeful musicians wind up with. I admit, I'm still getting used to total strangers knowing who I am, though, and it makes me a little nervous. I've heard some real horror stories from other bands and stalkers and the like, not to mention that I'm terrified of actually to accidentally offend someone and incur the wrath of the internet. The price of fame, I guess. Anyway, speaking of consequences of poor decisions, Thief still hadn't returned to the green room where we had filed back in at the end of the night. Caleb poked around the room, checking behind couches and under tables for any sign of his pet. Where's he gone then?
Okay, can we ask for a key to that room now?
I still don't know what you expect us to tell them.
I don't know, but we can't just leave them.
Sure we can.
No.
Well, we
Brian.
could just pick the lock.
Good call. We all looked at her.
Do you know how to do that?
Of course.
Or kick it down. She extracted a hairpin from her hair.
Wait, what about that time we locked ourselves out of the van and had to break a window?
Different kind of lock. Didn't have a clothes hanger. Come on.
We all watched curiously as Savannah fiddled with the lock on the employee door. It was pretty quiet at that point in the night. The venue was empty and the other bands were gone. Finally, the door swung open with a creak. Inside was a set of stairs leading down. That's not a good
We're
sign.
already in the basement.
We are. I guess there's a sub-basement?
Right, because that's totally a thing normal buildings have.
What do you think is down there?
Only one way to find out.
Savannah flipped on her phone flashlight and began to march down the stairs. Caleb hurried after her.
I'm really not sure that's a good idea.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, remember what happened last time we wandered into a dark, creepy place that we clearly weren't supposed to be in?
Fine. You wusses stay up there, and we'll go find the damn dog.
Brian and I looked at each other.
She's never going to let us live it down if we stay up here.
I know. Why do we always have to do this shit?
He stared down the stairs after them. Started down the stairs after them. I followed, flipping on my flashlight as well. I didn't see a light at the top of the stairs. I was hoping for one at the bottom, but the bottom was nowhere to be found. We hit a landing, and the stairs turned to face the other direction. Then another, where they reversed again. Oh, keep going. We decided to keep walking and descended another set of stairs. So the decision-making element, that's new. They didn't have any decisions in the last one. It was pretty much all just one... Yeah, it was just like reading a normal story. We get decisions, cool. Let's see if I made the right decision, that's the question. Oh, keep going. Another landing, another stairwell. It was starting to get chilly. I'm going to keep going. There was still no sign of a light switch or any sign of the bottom as we took another flight down. Is this going to go on forever? We've got to keep on going. I swung my flashlight around, but everything other than the stairs we were on was shrouded in darkness. Ooh. We continued our descent.
Okay, how the fuck long are these stairs? This is gonna take forever to get back up. Also, where are we?
I think I see the bottom.
Oh. He shined his light over Savannah's head. Sure enough, the last stair put us on solid ground, but there was still no light switch to be found, or a nearby wall for that matter. At least we've got us to the
Real
bottom.
talk, how deep are we?
Brian squinted into the darkness.
This has to be like stories below the ground. This is not a normal basement.
Deep enough that there's no cell service.
I held my useless phone in the air.
That's our luck.
We're looking for a ghost dog. Nothing about this is normal.
Thief! Hey, thief! Here, boy.
Before... Oh, he's around. Before we could shush him, we heard a bark in the distance. It echoed around the chamber a bit. We exchanged glances, and began walking towards the sound. Walls were still nowhere in sight, and the floor was a little more than packed dirt. There was another bark every 10 or 20 seconds, allowing us to reorientate ourselves in the right direction. We followed the sound of the barking. Note, headphones recommended for this part. Good, I'm sorted for that. Oh, it's right. We followed the sound to the right. Straight ahead. Left. We followed the sound to the left. Left again. Straight ahead. We followed straight forward. I realised, looking back, that this was not the smartest idea, any more than going down the stairs in the first place was. Just put it in our bad decisions tab.
Guys, how are we going to find the stairs again?
Oh, crud. Should I have remembered the, which direction I went in?
We'll just go back the way we came.
No, bugger. Well, Thief will help us.
Okay, can you tell me which way that is?
It's...
That way. I then realised that I couldn't see anything and had no idea.
That's what I thought.
There was another bark, and we kept moving towards it for lack of a better option.
really doesn't seem like we're getting any closer.
This place is a straight-up cavern.
Brian shined his flashlight around either side. He almost dropped his phone when he shined above us. When he shined it above us.
Ah, what the fuck?
What is... Oh, holy shit!
Take this where we come across some monster of some description, perhaps, maybe, probably, yes. What is it? Do show. There was something hanging from the ceiling directly above our heads. A handful of shiny, wet black eyes blinked down at us, and a pointed tongue hung from something that was halfway between a jaw and a mandible, sideways, but with a row of squarish, human-like teeth. Squarish teeth on the other side. Oh, they are squarish. I thought they were going to be like pointy fang incisor thingies. The creature clicked them together once or twice, then launched itself off of the ceiling and landed with a thud on the ground behind us. We spun around, the beams from our flashlights shaking as we began backing away. Now that it was on the ground, I could see that the thing's body was a little more than a large, round, black fuzzball. Long hair hung off of it, and swished back and forth when it moved. Its legs were, as stated in the previous story, somewhere between spider legs and tentacles. They were thicker, closer to its body, and the joints were sort of rounded, but they were visible joints. However, they had rows of what looked like suckers along the undersides. The thing clicked its teeth at us again, and took a step forward. We continued, shuffling backwards, when a familiar bark sounded again. "Come on, thief." Thief appeared in between us, and the creature wagging his tail and crouching down playfully, looking expectantly at the monster.
Thief, get away from there!
Are they going to be best of friends?
Dead. How much worse could it get?
Fair point.
I don't want to take that chance. Come here, thief.
Thief, in true and trained puppy fashion, completely ignored him and hopped side to side, woofing occasionally at the monster. The creature, in turn, blinked down at Thief with all of its eyes, then made a wiggling motion and also began hopping side to side, keeping low to the ground. They're going to be best buds, aren't they? Thief became extra excited and began running circles around the monster, periodically trying to nip at its feet. The monster continued to wiggle and click excitedly, its long fur swishing around as it and Thief took turns chasing each other around the room.
Are they playing?
Appears that way.
Well, it sure doesn't look like fighting.
So we're going to acquire another monster. Is this guy going to come with us now? The dog and spider thing continued their game for another few minutes before seeming to tire each other out and returning to where we were standing. Thief sat down in front of Caleb, tail still wagging, and the creature spun around once before shaking itself out and clicking happily, plopping its abdomen down on the floor with a thud.
Does this mean you're ready to go?
Is this where he's been the whole time? Thief looked up at him and barked once, tongue hanging out of his mouth as usual. Caleb slowly bent down and picked Thief up, never taking his eyes off the spider, which was now sitting calmly and watching us with some curiosity.
So, how do we get out of here?
Thief will know. At that, the creature perked up. We instinctively stepped back as it got to its feet and began making its way towards us, feet making a soft tapping noise on the dirt. However, it scuttled right past us, stopping on the opposite side and looking back expectantly, clicking a few times.
I think it wants us to follow it.
Sounds legit.
That really a good idea?
Got any better ones?
No.
Then, we're following the giant fuzzy spider.
It's cute, really. Reluctantly, we began to follow the spider, Spiderpus. We still couldn't see much, so we walked close together until finally the stairs came into view. At that point, we all but sprinted the rest of the way, hitting the wooden planks and beginning to jog up. I paused once on the way and waved awkwardly at the spider.
Thanks.
It clicked placidly in response, which I took as "you're welcome" as I hurried to catch up with the others. Well, who would have thought? A giant furry spider being a friend. However, we had, in our rush to escape, forgotten exactly how many stairs there were. By the time we actually made it to the top, we were all wheezing and drenched in sweat, except Savannah, who exerted this kind of energy on a regular while drumming and had to keep stopping to let us catch up. As we practically fell through the door and back into the basement hallway, the production manager came strolling down the stairs, whistling merrily. He stopped abruptly as we locked eyes. Are we going to get reprimanded now?
Gone?
No.
We had to... we forgot something.
He looked past us at the open door.
You went down there, huh?
Yeah.
You, met Bessie, I take it?
Bessie.
It has a name?
Of course she does.
It's a she?
Hell, as far as I know. Well, what'd you forget?
At that moment, Thief chose to materialise out of thin air on the floor in front of me, barking and wagging as usual. The man looked down at the dog, then back at us.
Oh.
I suddenly decided that whatever the answers were to any of my questions, I didn't want them.
Yeah, we're just gonna go now. Long drive, you know?
Right. You do that, yeah.
Without a word, we hurriedly made our way out of the venue, got in the van, and sped away as fast as we could without getting a ticket. No one spoke for a long while, and eventually I realised that Caleb and Brian, as well as Thief, were sleeping soundly in the back seat. Shortly after, Savannah passed out in the passenger seat, and I drove us into the night. I did a little digging around online later to see if anything even remotely close to the Spiderpus had ever been seen before, and nope, nada. The closest I found were a handful of folklore spider monsters from other countries and various Native American tribes, and a kraken. But Bessie didn't really match the description of any of them. I have to admit, it was a bit of a relief to know that there were other people who dealt with weird stuff on a regular floating around. Clearly, that production manager was aware of the monster in their basement, and I'm betting there were other employees who knew too. But that begs the question: what else is out there? Sorry, that's my impression of the X-Files theme tune. As it turns out, a lot of things, but those are stories for other days. Actually, you know what? That was kind of short, wasn't it? I think we actually have time for one more. Bear with me. I'm still working out a format for all of this. The next few days were, much to our relief, pretty normal, or at least as normal as your ghost dog sticking his head out of a van window just by phasing through the glass can get it anyway. However, it all came to a screeching halt when we crossed the state line into North Dakota. Oh, it looks like a nice place. Despite being well into what should be spring, places like this were still getting showered with snow. We stopped in some small town somewhere to get some gas and make a grocery run before we spent all our money on fast food. Not that there was much you could keep in a couple of coolers in a cramped van. And when I say small town, I mean there was like one main street and a couple of side streets, and everything after that was woods and fields. It was pretty isolated. There wasn't another town for miles as far as I could tell. The local residents were cheery enough, considering the weather, and a lot of them were going about their business in t-shirts. I guess anything above freezing in a heat wave in places like that. The weather didn't bother me personally. Growing up in Nebraska will do that to you. Brian was in a similar boat coming from Seattle, though he was more used to rain than snow. Our home base in Arizona now, but I don't think either of us have gotten used to the dry heat there. Caleb and Savannah, on the other hand, have spent their entire lives in desert country, relocating from Southern California to Tucson, where the forests met. The other two were bundled up in every article of winter clothing they had packed, walking around like Stay Puft Marshmallow people. Anyway, we pulled up the van and made our way to the town's tiny food mart. That looks quaint. It was a small mom and pop shop. Apparently Walmart and Costco hadn't managed to stick their claws into this place yet. The selection wasn't great, but it was better than McDonald's.
Remember, absolutely no dairy.
Why?
Also,
Oh, sorry.
Brian almost pukes every time he so much as smells milk.
Because being lactose intolerant is my fault.
And Caleb, lay off the Slim Jims. You're gonna turn into one if you keep eating those things.
Caleb made a pouty face and shuffled dejectedly away from Savannah. Brian and I headed in the opposite direction of Caleb and Savannah, occasionally shoving things into the grocery basket. Brian bought a jumbo bag of fruit and nut trail mix, and I carefully inspected a bag of Granny Smith apples before adding them to the basket.
You know you're literally the only person who likes those, right?
I like them.
Yeah, so no one takes them. Also, there's that saying about apples and keeping doctors away. And my health insurance is garbage, so I need to stay far away from the doctors.
Right, because we picked such a safe career option.
Yeah, there's not really any going back now.
Don't you actually have a degree? Why not get a job in that field?
Sure, if you see any historian openings, let me know.
You know, I never saw you as the academic type.
Honestly, me either. Can you imagine me in like a sweater and khakis teaching a class?
And silence. Brian looked briefly like he was trying to picture that before he burst out laughing.
Is it that ridiculous of an image?
No, it's just, I imagined it with the baseball cap.
My mouth slowly twitched into a smile, then a laugh, and a moment later we were getting funny looks from other customers as we cracked up in the middle of the produce aisle. Meanwhile, Savannah and Caleb were apparently having their own grocery adventure.
We're not buying an entire box of cereal.
They are wrapped up, Struth. She snatched the box of crunch berries out of Caleb's hand and put it back on the shelf.
We can't even get milk to put in it.
We don't need milk. Crunch berries are good dry.
No cereal is good dry.
Savannah handed him a box of Pop-Tarts instead. Caleb examined the box, swapped it for another flavour, and then put it in the basket. As they made their way through the store, Caleb paused at the end of an aisle, then darted down it, grabbed something, and sneakily shoved it in the basket before Savannah noticed. She confessed later that she had no idea how he did this, and perhaps we'd underestimated what he was capable of when motivated by food. As they walked past the meat section, Savannah paused.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
Please don't feed the animals. Caleb looked at the sign where she was pointing at and read it aloud.
Please do not feed the animals. What? The steaks?
How do you feed a chunk of dead cow meat?
Maybe they're ghosts, like Thief.
You don't feed thief either.
Oh, good point.
As they proceeded forward, things got stranger.
Hey, what's that on the floor?
Ew. I think we need somebody on aisle 4. Seems to be an accident. Savannah took a few steps close to the pink and white pile on the floor.
It's It's meat.
Sure enough, one of the packets of raw chicken had been torn open, and a half-eaten, half-melted thigh lay on the ground. Beautiful!
What kind of store is this?
Talk about cleanup on aisle 5.
Ah, see, I said aisle 4 was close. Savannah looked around and spotted an employee walking by.
Excuse me.
She jogged up to her and pointed at the pile of poultry flesh on the ground. The employee followed her gaze.
Oh, again? All right, I'll get the mop. Thanks.
With that, she casually strolled away, humming... dry throat. Humming to herself, leaving a very confused Savannah in her wake.
Okay, that's it. We're leaving.
She grabbed Caleb by the sleeve and dragged him away. Brian and I were already in the checkout line when Savannah and Caleb approached, looking quite unsettled. You
guys look like you've seen a ghost.
The joke didn't get much of a response out of them.
Everything okay?
There's something weird going on in this place. We should go.
Brian and I exchanged glances.
Weirder than normal for us?
I'm not sure, but I don't want to stick around and find out.
Do not disturb wildlife. Refilled on supplies, we got back into the van and set off down the snowy road out of town. It didn't take long for the houses to give way to trees and wilderness again. On the way out, there was a large wooden sign with "Do not disturb wildlife" spray painted in big red letters. I just thought it was kind of weird, but in retrospect, Savannah and Caleb seemed pretty unnerved by it. Oh. What was that? As we proceeded down the tree-lined road, I slammed on the brakes as something darted across it, the van skidding in the snow a bit before coming to a stop.
What did you do that for?
Did none of you see that?
See what?
There was an animal or something in the road.
What kind of animal?
I'm not sure. It was white, I think.
It looked like a dog to me.
That narrows it down. Let's go. This place weirds me out.
I pressed the gas pedal and the van moved onward. About half a mile later, I let it slowly drift to a stop again.
Now
Ooh.
what?
That doesn't look good. I pointed at something up ahead. In the snow was a puddle of something bright red and kind of chunky. Oops, hang on. Hang on. This time I received no snarky commentary. I nudged the van closer to the puddle, finally stopping a few feet from it, and opened the driver's door.
What are you doing?
Investigating. What else?
I ignored Brian and Savannah's protest and climbed out. The puddle was just kind of it was just as gross up close, and it had as it had from a distance. Red blood with chunks of pink and white flesh, and a few bits of hairy skin, though it was hard to tell what colour it had been. There was a trail of blood leading further into the woods.
You're not thinking about following that.
I am.
You understand why that's a bad idea, right?
Won't Thief give us a sort of an indication of whether this is a bad idea or not? We should use the doggy senses to get us out of this muddle.
Yes, but I'm not going to be able to live with myself if there's a person on the other end of this.
Should we maybe just call the police?
Probably.
Sure, if there's anything to call them about.
But it still looks dodgy. You'd still call the cops. I heard Brian muttering to Savannah as I walked away.
What's gotten into him?
Thankfully, it didn't actually go very deep into the woods, and what I found at the end was approximately half a deer, not a human. The other half was nowhere in sight.
What do you think did that?
Caleb had followed me into the clearing where the deer was. Thief was behind him and tilted his head curiously at the dead animal. It was mostly the front half of a deer that remained, though a good portion of the face looked as if it had either been eaten or disintegrated. Bits of the skull showed bright white, like some chemical had been used to strip flesh off of it.
Not sure, but we probably don't want to meet it.
We began to turn back. Suddenly, Thief hackles raised, and he began growling loudly, letting out a few barks in the direction of the woods opposite us.
That cannot be good.
That's what I was going to say. See, always keep Thief with us, because he'll warn us. I grabbed Caleb, and we were off back towards the van. Oh. There was an ear-splitting screech as something darted out of the trees towards us. It was moving too fast to get a good look at, and frankly, I didn't want to know. Oh, wow, cool. I found out anyway when I heard a yell from the direction of the van. When we emerged back to the road, Savannah and Brian were staring down a group of very hungry-looking creatures that had surrounded them. They looked like some kind of large weasel, but was with glowing red eyes and sharp teeth that seemed too big for their mouths. They were hissing angrily, some jumping forward and back, snapping their fangs at us.
I think I know what killed the deer.
I spun to face another group of the things that had appeared behind Caleb and I, blocking us all in. A couple of them were drooling, and the saliva hissed and steamed as it hit the ground, instantly melting the snow. What are you going to do, dudes? And dudette? Thief had appeared in front of Caleb, still snarling and snapping back at the animals. They seemed most interested in Caleb for some reason, and several of the ones that had cornered Savannah and Brian were moving in his direction, noses twitching as if they smelled something intriguing. One of the creatures spit a glob of saliva at Caleb, and he danced out of the way, nearly running into me. The ground sizzled where it hit.
You know, eaten by mutant weasels isn't the way I expected to go out.
Well, we survived the zombie and the spider monster. Our luck had to run out eventually.
True. I guess meat is meat to these guys.
Give them the food that you just procured. Suddenly, something seemed to occur to Caleb. He reached in his jacket pocket, digging around for a minute and dumping out an assortment of receipts and candy wrappers before apparently finding what he was looking for.
Hey, furballs!
He held a handful of plastic-wrapped sticks in the air.
Looking for a snack?
The weasels had turned to look at what was in his hand, taking the focus off the rest of us. Caleb chucked the handful of sticks as far as he could, and they landed with a plop in the snow. Without missing a beat, the gaggle of creatures whipped around and descended on the spot, becoming a hissing, wriggling mass as they fought over whatever Caleb had thrown down. We rushed back to the van, doors still slamming shut as I turned the key and the engine roared to life. I'm pretty sure we ran over a couple of the weasels as the tires screeched and we hauled ass out of there. And we're all safe. Nothing to worry about at all. A few moments later, we all felt we were safely away from the horde. Savannah turned to Caleb.
What did you throw back there?
Caleb grinned and extracted a box of something from one of the grocery bags, holding it up.
I thought I told you to lay off the Slim Jims.
No.
They aren't Slim Jims.
Oh.
They aren't Slim Jims. They're
He paused, reading the box.
Nice Mart brand processed meat sticks.
The rest of us just sighed. Anyway, that's about all I've got for now. I've never figured out what the weasels were either. I'm hardly a biologist, but Wikipedia couldn't point me to any species of weasel that spits acid and preys on full-grown deer. If anyone has any ideas what they were, definitely let me know. The closest thing I could find in terms of mythology was a Japanese monster called the Kaman. I had to ask Savannah how to pronounce that, which honestly sounds way scarier than what we encountered, and some creatures from Dungeons and Dragons. The intriguing part about it is that the locals definitely knew about them, so it's hard to believe that no one has alerted the biology authorities. I guess that is just the sort of thing that gets accepted in small towns. The Spiderpus and the Screeching Weasels proved one thing. The haunted house in the woods wasn't an isolated incident. This stuff is everywhere, and every town could be hiding its own monstrous secret. I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about that. Anyway, I think I just heard Brian drop something heavy that he probably has no business picking up. So I guess I should go and make sure he's not dying or anything. Signing off for now. There we go then. That's another episode. Oh, I do like those. They are cool. But something dawned on me while I was playing this one. Obviously, we have the decision to go down the stairs or turn back at the beginning. What would be really cool if there was a bit more to do, more decision making throughout the fruition of the game. Because other than that, it's just me reading a story. There's no alternative avenues that we can go and explore apart from going down the stairs or going back up. So it would be good if the developers are watching this to throw in perhaps a few more decisions, a few different paths that you could potentially go down. But that's just me spitballing. But other than that, I mean, again, as with the previous one, story is brilliant. The narrative is brilliant. The voice acting is brilliant. The audio is brilliant. It's just a really cool premise, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'd be really interested to see what you guys think of the last episode and this latest iteration of the game. So let me know in the comment section below. Always intrigued to hear from you. But until then, thank you so much for watching. It is greatly appreciated. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Laters.